Welcome to the world united. Welcome to the world united.
Paula is our next speaker, and Dr. Paula Horn is known throughout Asia for her books and her seminars, her retreats, authentic forms of vibrational medicine, and groundbreaking approaches to spirituality, which convey a direct experience of non-dual awareness. Shortly after the Parivanava of her guru Shi Punjai in 1997, a close disciple of Sri Ramana Maharishi, she met her Tibetan master, who inspired her to further engage in the teachings of non-dual awareness within the Vajrayana tradition. Paula, you're going to have to correct all my pronunciations of these words. I really apologize. Both Papaja and her later Tibetan master encouraged her to teach in Asia and to give back to Asian students who now sought to go west, the roots of their own sacred teachings in a simple Western-style format, appropriate for a world population that is now science-oriented in their training. So, all right, here we go.
World Spiritual Parliament here for North America. Now, actually, I'm speaking to you from the middle of India, South India, Hyderabad. And, you know, I had a choice this year to either get on the Asian portion because I've lived in Asia for 30 years. But I decided that this time I really wanted to speak to my fellow Americans and, you know, North Americans, Canadians too, of course, and Mexico and so on, because I feel like I've received so much richness from having participated as a young person in learning Taoism in my 20s. That's actually when I was a grad student. I have a doctorate in psychology when I was a grad student in the US. And then later in the Advaita Vedanta system from one of Ramana Maharshi's main disciples. And then later in the Tibetan Buddhist system that I've been in for the last 20 years. And so because I've been here so long, like I'm mostly known here in either India or China for my books, my seminars, retreats on different forms of vibrational medicine. I'm well known for I put out 4 Reiki books starting back in the 80s, and I'm known as the person who brought Reiki to India in 89. And due to the grace of my teachers in both the Hindu Advaita Vedanta tradition and in the known for I put out 4 Reiki books starting back in the 80s, and I'm known as the person who brought Reiki to India in 89. And due to the grace of my teachers in both the Hindu Advaita Vedanta tradition and in the Tibetan Buddhist, I've managed to develop certain groundbreaking approaches to spirituality, which convey, you know, a direct experience of non-dual awareness. Now, shortly after the parinirvana of my guru, H.W.L. Punjaji, in 1997, a close disciple of Sri Ramana Maharshi, who is probably the greatest sage in India, who died in 1950. I soon after met my Tibetan master, who further inspired me to engage in the teachings of non-dual awareness within the Vajrayana tradition. And both Papaji and later my Tibetan master encouraged me to teach in Asia, to give back to Asian students who now sought to go west. It's like every Chinese kid or Indian kid for the last 30 years has wanted to go to university in the States. And so they told me it was appropriate I was born in a Western body because all Asians want everything from the West. And also one of the gifts we have as Westerners, I see, is that we're so taught to think rationally, logically, We're able to take some of the complicated teachings from the East and put them in a really nice codified format, which makes it easy to convey to a large amounts of people. Now, I don't have a long time to talk. I did do a longer talk for about an hour and a half that they'll probably be recording and playing later. But what I'm going to discuss today, it comes from my book, Fierce Innocence, which is called Fierce Innocence, A Guide to Life's Purpose to Benefit All Beings. And my theme today is how vulnerability is the key to true strength at a time when just life is throwing so many things at us all at once, that and especially the media trying to evoke tons of fear about COVID, and this whole lockdown business, which is about to be exposed for what it truly is. We're just filled with so many trials. So many people are really having a hard time. And so what I also want to look at today is how to develop radical acceptance of what is. This is the true state of the Buddha. And radical acceptance to what is the antidote to fear. And so what I want to talk about, how to counter this automatic resistance to feeling bad that we have, which only creates more of the same. And later, my Tibetan master encouraged me to teach in Asia, to give back to Asian students who now sought to go west. Many years later, and I healed both of those, by the way, with Gerson therapy and Reiki and so on. I never used chemo or radiation or any of that stuff, which knocks out your immune system and often kills you. People, they get cured of the cancer and then they die of the cure within 2 years, very often if you do that stuff. So, and anyway, and then I had one on my ovary, which was a result of past life karma coming up, some torture, sexual torture from a past life, which then came out as cancer. So crystallized blockages, which occur first in the energy body, because the emotions are stuck, and then often with repetition, are absorbed into the physical body. They act like magnets to attract more of the same type of experiences, so that we can finally go through them consciously and let go of them. But in the meantime, it causes more contraction and thus physical problems and illness due to further crystallization, which occurs. So any training which teaches us to experience life without an automatic internal resistance to pain or discomfort helps us shed layer upon layer of encrusted resistance and leads us into greater awareness and ultimately less pain and discomfort. So automatic resistance to discomfort is behind the subtle sense of fear or anxiety, which tends to hover in the background of our consciousness as we go about our daily life. But before I close, I want to share a couple tips of how we can overcome it. How can we overcome these things? Well, one of the things that I teach, and like I've been working in teaching in India now for 25 years, and the last 10 years, a lot in China until this whole thing went crazy. And a lot of the people I worked with were older people who were terribly tortured in the Cultural Revolution under Mao Zedong. And yet with EFT, within an hour and a half, I could often help them complete a lifetime of trauma. And you could just see it in their faces. I mean, they'd go into bliss and all of it. It was really amazing. Now, I have a wonderful protocol for releasing emotional contraction, but we don't have time in this short 15 minutes. What I want to recommend, and I will be teaching EFT soon, by the way, and I should mention, for those of you who want to learn more about this from me, I will be giving talks on a show here in India called Folk Brain, FOLKBRAIN, with Kailash Mishra. For those of you who want to, because I'd like to go in more depth with all of you. But anyway, what I can suggest to you very quickly is that you can tap, at the end of the day, look at what it is that you are clinging to, and whatever you're clinging to is desire, and what you resist. Now, we all have, desire and resistance are the two sides of the coin of karma. And for example, we all desire love. We need love, but we also resist it because, I have to open myself to receive it, don't I? And that makes me feel vulnerable, and I'm afraid of that. Or we desire wealth, but we also resist it. So the best thing to do with EFT is to tap, like, oh God, I really resisted that person. I don't know, when I'm around that person, I really don't feel good. I don't feel good. I don't want to be around that person. Just tap all the resistance stuff. And then desire, like, but I've got to have that. I need that. I've got to have that person or that car or that house or that job or whatever it is. So just tap those things at the end of the day. And Reiki is a very good thing, for calming the mind and raising your life force energy. I've been a Reiki master for over 30 years now. And I have many books on Reiki, 4 books on Reiki. And you can look me up, Paula Horan. I suggest morning meditation every morning and a micro practice to create presence throughout the day and bring yourself into the present. Now, what you can do, I'm just going to teach you one really quick. This is a quickie. And when I teach my students, and I found it in a sadhana describing the face of an actual Buddha. one of the many Buddhas that we envision ourselves as in Tibetan practices. And it describes the Buddha as being wrathful, smiling, and affectionate. And I thought about wrath. I got to try that out. So I made a wrathful face, and you can do it with me real quick. Ha, wrathful. Ha. Then on top of the wrathful, and just do that with me. Just take a moment. Go, ha, ha. And now smile on top of that. Smile. Yeah. And then ooze affection out of your eyes. Now, see what that wrathfulness did in the moment. It made, if you do it right, it's like you'll feel your goosebumps on your neck. It's almost like it gets your hackles up. Ha! Then smiling, smile out your eyes. Remember, the visual cortex uses up 70% of your brain. So if you're smiling, like I teach a Taoist exercise called the inner smile, where we smile through our eyes. We bring this inner smile from our third eye into our eyes and then smile. So this incorporates that. So wrathful, smiling, and affection coming out your eyes. That brings in the compassion. So if you do that, you can do that any time of the day, and you can do it very quietly, when you're at work or you're taking a walk, whatever you're doing. And then the other thing is wonderment, like the awe you feel at the birth of a baby, the awe you feel at a sunset, just whatever's happening, whatever you're doing something stupid. Wow, aren't I being ridiculous today? Or, aren't I being angry? This is a very helpful one. But what I want to leave you with is this message. The greatest gift that you can give to yourself and to the planet is to take responsibility for your own karmic quotient. Understand that all of your experiences do not come from the outside. They don't come from the outside of you. They come from inside, okay? They're all attracted by your own mind. And each one of us has personal karma, and we're also part of a group karma. Like I have North American karma, but I got so frustrated with trying to educate people about certain things 30 years ago, which people are not ready to take in. I went east. And then I realized one thing I love about the East is that, in the West, everything is, it's either left, right, white, black. It's either one or the other, subject, object, really heavy duty. In the West, in the East, there's many shades of gray, and not like that sexy book I'm talking about, but literally that we all know about. But actually the shades of gray of how things really are. And I find it easier to take Asians directly into their heart because they're not so into the intellectual mode. Although everybody has a Western style education these days, it's still easier to put Easterners in your heart. So I really want to encourage Westerners to really take time every day to really, when you meditate, bring your attention to your heart a lot. Bring yourself out of your head. Really important for Westerners right now. And so that you can start to feel your real compassion. And true compassion can arise when we realize that even when people, and this is the real secret for all of you, true compassion can arise when we realize that even when people seem to attack us without reason, they are only unconsciously acting out on us the same thing that we did to them in the past. We are actually the cause of what they're doing to them now. It's like when you realize that because of what you did to them in the past, they are now unconsciously creating the very negative karma for themselves in the future that, you're getting back from what you did to them. And so that, in other words, your earlier actions towards them are the root cause for what they're doing to you now. It's like the deep state and what it's doing to us. Obviously, we have participated on some level in the same, sickness and psychopathic stuff at some point. Let's face it, we've all, in some life or another, we've all been soldiers in a war, and we may have raped and pillaged at the end of the war. Well, then you do that, then in another life you get raped back. It's just, justice is pristine. And once you realize that there are no real victims, okay, then it becomes easier not to take any of life personally. You know that whatever's happening to you is just coming back at you from what you've done in the past. And that doesn't make it necessarily any easier, but it does help it to go through. And by the way, this doesn't take away the responsibility for the person who's acting that out. You know, it doesn't excuse them either, but it sure takes away your victim complex, you know, and gives you your true power back when you understand that everything you experience is coming from your own mind. I can't say that enough. And, you know, like I lead this one retreat that I've done for like 30 years called Core Empowerment. And when people first do that, it's like they're clearing so much karma, they don't necessarily absorb, you know, all of everything. You know, I always tell people to do it 3 times, because the second time, that is the lesson people get. They really start to integrate on a very deep level that, wow, everything that happens in my life is coming from my own mind. It's not coming from the outside. And it's one thing to know that intellectually, you see, but it's a totally different thing when you get it directly. And, you know, it's like fully integrated inside of you. So anyway, I want to thank you for listening in today. And I'm sorry I couldn't be with you longer. There's so much more I would love to share. But you can join me again on Kailash Mishra. I'll be doing 5 programs with them in the next 5 weeks or so. Just look it up, Folk Brain with Kailash Mishra, Kailash Mishra, Mishra, and Folk Brain. He's an anthropologist that's doing these great shows. And also, you can look, the talk I gave today is taken from my book, Fierce Innocence. And another book I want to suggest of mine is Heal Yourself with Ozone. I'll be giving a talk on that, on Folk Brain. And also, to find out more information, you can go on paulahoran.org or karmacompletion.com. So anyway, thank you so much for listening today. And I'm saying so many prayers for all of you in North America, because America is truly, you know, like the last man standing. Whatever happens in America or doesn't happen in America right now is going to affect the whole world. So I pray that all of you really stand up for your truth right now. And there doesn't need to be any violence, but there needs to be a standing up for your own truth to everyone, and really, you know, demanding your rights for sure. And just quietly standing up and showing yourself, you know, the truth of what you are. So anyway, thank you so much. I send you all so many blessings, and yes, and I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much. Thank you.